Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining. This is the Future Solutions Fence and Outdoors Clip of the Day podcast. My name is David Gatto, and I'm your host. Real quick, guys, what this podcast is about. This podcast is about my journey coming from homelessness to starting and growing a multi-million-dollar company from $0. In this, you're going to find the pitfalls that have held me back and also the tips and tricks that allowed me to experience exponential growth in my company. So with all that being said, guys, sit back, enjoy the show. If you like it, subscribe and share it. Hey, everybody, and thanks for joining the Future Solutions Fence and Outdoors Clip of the Day podcast. Guys, just recapping what we went over in episode number 5. I had sold my first fence job. I like it. I see a profit in it. It was not easy, the first one, but I know with practice that I can get a lot better. Now, at this part in my journey, I don't have enough fence work to just strictly do fences. I'm all over the place. I'm selling fences. I'm still cleaning gutters. I'm putting irrigation systems in. I'm taking bathroom remodels on, whatever people will throw at me. And every once in a while, I get a fence in there. Right? And I'm starting to get more comfortable with the fences now. I'm starting to get more comfortable with the bidding process. I'm starting to get more comfortable with the verbiage and the contracts, things of that nature. And I'm really starting to consider the idea of not doing anything else, just strictly doing fence. And I'm going to tell you guys right now that this was a game changer for me. Okay? The way that I see it, it's almost like the sun. Right? The sun unfocused will just warm some stuff up. But if you take the sun and you put it through a magnifying glass, it can set things on fire. You can turn it, it's like a focusing a laser beam. When a laser beam is focused, they could cut through steel and everything. So I'm really considering the idea of just strictly doing fencing and specializing in fencing. Okay, now there's one thing that's scaring me about this. The thing that's scaring me about it is I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to do in the wintertime? Because as far as I'm concerned, people don't fence in the winter. They don't fence in the frozen ground. They don't fence in the snow. Little do I know, that's not the case at all. Right? So that little bit of fear has kind of stopped me. I'm saying, okay, well, maybe I should put a plow on my truck, or maybe I should do this, or maybe I should start advertising for that. So eventually I do make the switch, and it allows me to really hone my skills in on this fencing. And I'm telling you, at this point, guys, I'm all in. I'm learning about fencing. I'm out there doing it. I'm asking people about it. I'm asking contractors about it. Now I'm watching YouTube videos and podcasts about fencing, and I'm really starting to dig this stuff. I'm going to tell you guys that I loved installing fence. Life was so simple when I was just installing fence. We're out there, we're in the wide open, breathing fresh air, getting sun, barbecuing out there, getting tans, drinking water, listening to music. My biggest concern at this time was, is there going to be a rock in this hole? All I had to do is dig a hole and keep a post level with a string line. Okay, so I'm really liking this. I don't know much about business at this point. I still don't have a business license. I still don't have workers' compensation. My business is still not registered as an LLC. I have nothing in place that actually states that I'm a business. So now this stuff's going to start to pop up, right? So let me tell you. So I'm at this job, right? I sell the biggest job ever. It's like an 800-foot fence. Well, the biggest job ever at the time. It's like an 800-foot vinyl fence, right? And I really want this job, right? So I go in there, and the guys are like, "Hey, what's your time frame?" They strictly hired me based on my time frame, which is not an abnormal thing at all. And you'll find that out as you get into the process. A lot of people, they're not so concerned about the price. They're more concerned about the service they're going to get and the time frame that they're going to get, and what you can and cannot do for them, what type of warranties and promises you have, etc. So anyways, I get this job, right? Second day into this fence, when we're putting it in, the state police show up, right? So the state police show up because we're out of time ordinance. So we're out there digging holes in the dark, which we hired another company to come out there and dig the holes. So the state police show up, they got their spotlights now. They're blue collar guys. They completely understand. They're like, all right, guys, wrap it up. This is unacceptable. You guys are out here at 9 o'clock at night making all kinds of noise, this, that, and the third. So we say, okay, we're going to wrap it up. So next day we come out there and we're installing. Well, all of a sudden I see a vehicle out there with municipal tags on it. And I'm like, well, who could this be? Well, it's a zoning officer. And the first thing he says to me, he introduces himself. So I'm such and such from the whatever township that I was in at the time. And he goes, where's your permit? And I was like, what's that? And he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I was like, what is that? And he's like, what about your PA1 call? Did you call 811? He's like, I don't see no markings out here. And I said, what's that? What do you mean? Underground markings for what? So here I am out there just wildly plunging an auger into the ground, completely unconscious that there may be gas lines, there may be electrical lines, there may be fiber optic sprinkler systems, pool filter lines, all the underground obstructions that I will hit throughout my career eventually. So fortunately for me, this guy took more of like the fatherly stance. It's like, he completely understood, because I'm sure it wasn't his first rodeo. I'm sure that he's ran into several guys just like me, and he knew that I wasn't being deceptive. I just didn't know what that was. So he's making some phone calls. He's got this plot plan out, this big roll of paper, right? About a half hour goes by. And, we're still doing what we're doing out there. And the next person that shows up is a person and that is from the Environmental Protection Agency. And I'm like, the EPA? I'm like, what the heck is going on out there? So now the EPA is out there and the township's out there, and here comes the customer outside. And he's like, hey, is everything all right out here? I'm like, oh, yeah, everything's fine, sir. Just relax. I'll go back inside. I'll fill you in here when we're all done. Right? So now the EPA says this. The EPA says, hey, you guys got to cease and desist this project. He's like, we're red tagging this thing. This is it was a protected wetland. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, well, what do we do about that? And the township's like, oh, slow your roll. First, we need to see a permit. So anyways, through this whole process, the Environmental Protection Agency shuts it down. I go down to the township. I apply for the permit, right? Because there is ways around things like that with the EPA, which involved moving the wetland, which, of course, how the heck am I supposed to do that? But anyways, I go down to the township. The next thing they start asking me for is they start asking me, what's my EIN number? What's my contractor, my PA contractor's license number? Where's my business license at? So all these things had surfaced during this job of the things that I didn't have, that I was lacking in my company. They asked me for a copy of my insurance, my workers' compensation insurance. I had nothing. So I'm scared to death. I'm like, what am I supposed to do? And then I start investigating this stuff and finding out how much time and money it costs. I'm like, wow, I can't afford that. I can't afford to put people on workers' compensation or afford liability insurance or pay for these licenses or take these tests or whatever the case was calling for. So at this point, I'm devastated, guys. However, the customer had worked that out with that job. I can't say on camera what we had actually done to get that job done, but it was done. So with all that being said, guys, I'm going to wrap this episode up. This is episode number 6. We'll be tuning in for episode number 7 tomorrow. See you guys.